latest crisis of Russia-Ukraine war has, however, derailed the entire world economy as never before, the biggest shock after the Second World War, causing tremors around the world. As the Governor RBI mentioned in today's unscheduled press briefing, seismic waves with epicenter in that region. It resulted in increased prices of energy, commodities, metals, and supply disruptions. There have been several fallouts, political, economic, in energy, commodities, defense, currencies. US imposed severe sanctions and cut off SWIFT transactions. It also resulted in closer realignment of Russia and China with its consequent implications. One of the most severe impact of the war has been felt in the global energy sector, in oil and gas, where Russia and Ukraine were the world's biggest suppliers. Russia is second and Ukraine the guest, one of the most important. And with the strategic location of ports for the supplies, the contagion soon was felt in other areas: food, commodities, energy, edible oil, finance, exports, trade, investment for India, defense, metals, and stock markets, and so on. Chinese ports also have strategic importance in this part of the world, and recently, due to the pandemic, they closed some of their very important ports like Shanghai. Oil-related products have a share of over 9% in the wholesale price index basket. A 10% increase in crude may lead to an increase of about 0.9% in WPI inflation. A larger oil import bill may impact India's external position. It may also increase subsidies on LPG and kerosene, pushing up the overall subsidy bill. Moody's said the high commodity prices and supply chain disruptions due to further escalation in the Russia-Ukraine crisis could expose about 42% of the rated Indian companies to significant risks, arising mainly due to oil and gas and automotive sectors. There have been problems also in the chips with the disruption in supplies. The sensitivity of each sector reflects three channels of risk transmission. First is a commodity price shock and supply disruption. Second pertains to economic and financial disruption with the tightening of funding conditions. And finally, security risks. The credit implications for companies depend on the direct exposure to each channel and their capacity to mitigate shocks. Coincidentally, Governor Shaktikant Das a few minutes ago, in an unscheduled policy announcement, raised the repo rate by 40 basis points and underlined the need of containing inflation with accommodation for growth. In his speech, he also referred to intense pressures on prices and increased inflation caused due to Ukraine war. And we have to assess the impact on MSME sector, particularly as a result of this increase in repo rates and allied issues. In the context of our defense needs, this Russia-Ukraine conflict has severely impacted our needs. Most of our 80% virtually, and I've been Secretary Defense Production, and I know exactly how things have been. We are dependent on Russia for a number of our defense needs, on submarines, on arms, on Air Force, and so on, and on spares also. I won't like to go into detail. I know that we are running woefully short of time, but we have a limited flexibility and elbow room, and therefore we have to always balance what we need to do. And I must compliment our government, our Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister in being very, very pragmatic in balancing the various pressures and sticking to India's own needs as far as dealings with Russia and the West is concerned. There have been other issues relating to China, issues relating to Sri Lanka and Pakistan, yet altogether, I would say India's brilliant diplomatic moves very deftly balanced what was in the best interest of India. The supply chain disruptions in this regard, as I mentioned in the beginning, the chips in particular, which are so much needed in the automotive sector and also in the computers and our hardware and so on and so forth. We hope that in the passage of time and some of the policies like the production linked incentive scheme, which the government has undertaken, hopefully should solve some of these problems. So altogether, I would say that India should be able to weather the shock and the storm caused on account of the Russia-Ukraine war and some of the other geopolitical disruptions at the moment. And hopefully we should come out of it, as they say, hum honge kamyab. Thank you very much for your attention.